to Sickness. For those unaware, this is a visual novel, and if you can't tell by the color palette, the splatter of blood, and the knife through the title, this is not exactly a friendly game. So I was planning on my next Dark Hero excursion to be Sometimes Always Monsters, but on account of Origami not living up to expectations, I've increased my uploads of Ace Academy, and thus there's a void that needs to be filled until I'm ready to record Setsuno once again. So, to give you a bit of warning, this will go back on the back burner once I can start doing Setsuno once again. But for this weekend, I can give you a taste of what was to come had Ace Academy not finished when it did, and that would be Sickness. So, to the best of my knowledge, there are 3 routes available in this game depending on what you choose to do. I'm not 100% certain the devs are done with the game. I mean, it is a finished product, it's not an early access, but there was a new route added in May, and it could be, there could be another route added for all I know. Anyway, I think I've taken enough of your time. Let's begin. Although Sickness is littered with both comedy and romance and illustrates many undesirable scenarios in a lighthearted manner, this game does contain adult themes. Some are limited to specific routes/decisions and can be easily avoided, whereas others are not optional. These themes include, but are not limited to, violence, murder, sexual references, references to drug use, incest, easily avoidable because you don't bang your sister, it's really that simple, mental illness, coarse language, and other themes of a similar nature. If you are uncomfortable with such themes, please consider whether or not you wish to continue. If you choose to proceed, you will not be warned again. So, one other thing, I don't believe this is 100% voice acted, or even as well as Ace Academy, so I may have to do a lot more reading, just like I had to do with Fata Morgana. But let's proceed. Murder, one of the most heinous crimes a person can commit. The act of taking another human being's life. The act of robbing a person of their already limited time on this planet. It is a fear-inducing crime which anybody can commit. Every housewife, every student, every police officer is a potential killer. Okay, I think this was done before the whole incidents with the police, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I don't really want to go into the details for those of you not in the US, but just know that there's a pretty big fight brewing with the police currently. But anyway, back to your escape from reality. It's a crime that doesn't discriminate by blood or circumstance. It is a crime which can be committed by and make victims of just about anyone. Everybody remains both a potential killer and victim, blissfully ignorant of the fact that they could be next, assuring themselves that it could never happen to them. And so, as a result of the naivete, those very people never see it coming. Though the scene before me may seem horrific, in this case, as with so many others, there was no great story behind it. There was no build-up, no resentment between the victim and myself, no mutual hatred that gave us reason to fight. We didn't spend years at each other's throats. We never fought before, and neither one of us saw this coming. In reality, this was the result of a simple, common scenario, one we've all heard of before. Penny pinching employer, bankrupt employee, and a denied paycheck. Truly, there was nothing special about this encounter. My boss didn't taunt me or attempt to exacerbate the situation. He didn't fire me, insult me, or do anything to tempt fate. If anything, I'm the one who made things worse. Rather than try to reason with him, I lashed out, beating the pompous man in front of me to a bloody pulp. I knew it wouldn't accomplish anything. I knew attacking him wouldn't give me the money I needed, and yet I needed to punish him. That's right. As self-righteous as it sounds, I couldn't let him get away with what he did. The money that greedy bastard owed me, a pittance to him, was everything to me. It would have fed my sister and I, secured our lease for another month, perhaps even granted us a brief respite from the hell we're currently living. It was a shining beacon in our otherwise miserable lives, a way to ensure our survival during such a trying, stressful time. But because of that narcissist whim, all hope I had of repairing my broken life vanished. He would deny me shelter, food, comfort, and for what? New seats for his car, a fancy watch, a new TV? And so, staring this injustice in the face, hearing firsthand how little my life meant to him, I snapped. Of course, as fate as it may seem to reciprocate his indifference to my life by taking his, doing so was never my intention. True, I wanted to kill him. I wanted to make him suffer for belittling my life, for denying me even a moment of peace. But I realized then, as I can clearly see now, that lashing out won't solve anything. So why did I do it? Why would I resort to this? Why would I deliberately choose this no-win situation? If I were to commit a criminal act, why resort to violence rather than theft? If this were truly about my wages, why seek revenge rather than alternative means of compensation? Unfortunately, there's only one answer I can give in which I'm confident. You're losing your mind. It isn't the first explanation that came to mind, but it does make sense. A few hours ago, I would have laughed at the cliché of a criminal blaming the voices in their head. Even more so at the notion that a person would act on the silent words of an unseen entity. However, as evidenced by the corpse at my feet, those words aren't so easy to ignore. As I attempted to survive in this two-class society, willfully believing that I was somehow immune to the corruption and classism plaguing this town, there was always a voice whispering to me, telling me not to believe the good fortune around me. A voice filled with skepticism and doubt, preempting the inevitable, telling me to take action before it was too late. But you didn't listen. That was my first mistake. I ignored the benevolent advice offered to me, the predictions now shown to be accurate, the good faith I received from someone asking for nothing in return. When it told me to stay in school and live with a guardian, when it told me to seek work elsewhere, when it told me to look for a home somewhere safer, I didn't listen. Every step of the way I fought against the sound, logical advice it offered. If anything, I made a point of doing the opposite of what the voice told me to do, or at least, until you heard what you wanted to hear. And that was my second mistake. It wasn't that I refused to heed the voice's advice. I simply wasn't interested in taking the safe, responsible route. So, by the time that violence had become the advised course of action, my path had already been determined. Chapter 1: A New Life. Monday, September 5th. Sadly, I missed this by about a month. Had I actually started, would have caught up eventually. Monday evening, September 5th. Less than half an hour ago in this very room I committed a serious crime. A very violent crime. The kind of crime for which people go to prison without any hope of ever leaving. I lost control of myself, attacked my boss, and without a doubt ended my short time working in this place. I acted on impulse as I stared in the face an injustice that threatened to take away my home, allowing myself to do the only thing I could do. I could to avoid feeling powerless. But as the adrenaline wore off and the tension cooled, I soon realized my mistake. I saw clearly the fresh corpse at my feet, the stained carpet beneath it, and the bloody hands responsible for everything before me. And so I stared at my own handiwork, accepted the gravity of the situation before me, and took immediate steps towards regaining control once more. You know, when you called me here, I feared you needed my help with something not strictly legal, but this? Suo, my man, you have outdone yourself. You really do have a bright future ahead of you. Unfortunately, given my dire situation, my options were quite limited. Staring an imminent prison sentence in the face, I called upon Marcus, a co-worker of mine. Contrary to his crappy dye job and lean figure, Marcus is a man of many trades, several of which aren't entirely legal. Since the moment I began working here, Marcus has been open about his criminal dealings, more than once hinting that he could help me, or vice versa. for and make good on that promise. Oi, oi. Less talking, more lifting. I'm here to help you two out, not take care of everything myself. The second Marcus saw our boss in his current state, he understood the situation. Without asking a single question, he promised to help me out of my predicament, thereafter calling a man whom I've never met before. And surely enough, upon seeing our boss's corpse, the stranger smiled to himself and grabbed Mr. Muto's legs, dragging his body into the doorway before requesting assistance. Don't be like that. Surely a big, strong man like you can lift that weedy piece of shit by yourself. And get this poor sap's blood all over me in the process? Either give me a hand or do this yourself. Marcus and his acquaintance carried my boss's corpse into the stranger's van, which is parked just outside of Muto's office. Thanks to the proximity of my boss's office, nobody heard our scuffle over the machinery used within the warehouse, and Marcus's acquaintance was able to block visibility and access to the office with his vehicle. Even so, despite knowing how fortunate my circumstances were, I couldn't help but feel anxious. Whether these two successfully cover Muto's death or not, there's no way this can end well. All it would take is one witness or a slip of the tongue and I could wind up in prison. And even if I do get away with this, what then? Will I be indebted to Marcus forever? Will he ask for something extreme in return for his silence? No matter what scenario I envision, it doesn't bode well for me. That bastard's heavier than he looks. Tell me about it. I thought my corpse handling days were long over. His corpse handling days? This guy sounds like the right person for the job, but just who is he? Anyway, I'll handle the disposal. You two clean up in here, alright? You're the boss, Andre, just leave the rest to us. After all, that'll give us time to talk about repayment. And there it is. It's not unreasonable for Marcus to expect something in return. I called on him knowing full well that I'd need to repay the favor. Even so, just think about how he'd expect me to repay something like this. What do you have in mind exactly? I think we're Suo, but I'm not 100% on that. Oh, nothing big. At least not for someone like you. But really, before we get into that, I've got to tell you. I picked you as a fighter from the moment we met, but to actually kill somebody? I seriously underestimated you. Marcus makes it sound like I planned on killing Muto from the start. But I'm no killer. Even if I'd been in my fair share of fights, I've never tried to kill someone before. With that in mind, I have the perfect job for you. I'm sure he does. But given the events leading up to this moment, I have to ask, is it a legal job? Sure, why not? As long as you don't get caught, of course. Figures. Oh, cheer up, I'm just messing with you. I've got the perfect job in mind for you. You'll be able to rake in money, feed that aggression of yours, and pay off your debt almost immediately. Interested? Hang on. You're offering to pay me while I repay you. Of course. Considering the reason why we're here, I thought it would be better not to get between you and your money. Whatever the case, what kind of job are we talking about? I brought you here to get me out of trouble. There won't be any point if you just drag me in deeper. You really don't have any faith in me, do you? Well, so be it. Just keep in mind you're worth more to me alive than, well, in prison. You're worth more to me alive and well than in prison. That is a fair point. Not that you have any choice anyway. If all is kept secret, then you're going to do exactly as I say. Richmond, a town riddled with crime and corruption. Richmond is a vast town, a collection of smaller districts, each varying significantly in terms of wealth, ethnicity, and population density. Large enough to entrap millions of everyday citizens, yet dense enough to suffocate any who dare reside within. It's a complicated town, misunderstood even by those living within its walls. But beyond the size and scope of this town, there is one aspect which stands out above all others. Its concentration of wealth. This is a town wherein the wealthy flock together, creating their own small utopia. I don't think I've ever seen an E in utopia. They build up selected parts of the city, sculpt the law to their liking, and generally get away with whatever their bank balance will allow. The end result has been a creation of a state-sized town comprised of countless districts, varying from wealthy suburbs filled with hospitals and schools, loud here, and I am a little concerned it may drown me out. I may mess with the audio settings in the next video, we'll see. As someone living in a wealthy suburb while working among the poor, I'm fairly familiar with both sides of the city. Thanks to those who cling to every cent, labor can be commissioned for next to nothing, making Richmond a surprisingly cheap place to live. Public transport is constant, resources are plentiful, infrastructure is abundant, and the town keeps growing. For those with the money to support themselves, this isn't a bad place to live. On the other hand, with so much competition for work, most residents have no choice but to accept whatever work they can, and to slave away for as little as necessary. Slave wages are standard practice. Workplace safety laws don't apply. That's every man for himself. For anyone without a white-collar job, this town is hell. And with mere weeks left on her lease, it won't be long before my sister and I experience that hell for ourselves. Of course, looking back over my lives to this point, I can't really complain. Before our parents passed away, Sarah and I lived sheltered, easy lives, never worrying for a second about housework or finances. We lived good lives in a safe neighborhood. We attended an adequate school and ate healthily, and were never far away from medical help. So now, even with all of that being stripped away, we're still better off than most others in our situation. Or at least we would be. If I don't handle just single-handedly destroy our lives. No matter what excuse I give, whether I blame my boss's penny pinching, the foreign anger I feel surging through my body, or merely my desperate need for cash, it doesn't change the fact that I killed a man. Even so, I don't feel guilty. I barely even regret the loss of life. If anything, it was the most fun I've had in months. A single moment of pure bliss, taking me away from the harsh reality of my new life. Rather, what's eating away at me now is the imminent aftermath. Thanks to my selfish act of revenge and self-indulgence, I now have to explain to my only family why, after a mere 2 weeks in this house, we'll be forced to move again. Without a stable source of income, we won't be able to live here much longer, and I refuse to allow my sister to be subjected to the discrimination and crime that makes this city so unlivable for the poor. But with my only chance of recovery resting in the hands of a friend who essentially blackmailed me into meeting with him tonight, I have no illusions over how well this will go. So if my chances are to give Sarah fair warning before her lease expires, or to place my faith in a criminal who I've known for a mere 2 weeks, then... well, can I even call that a choice? As soon as I entered my temporary home, I noticed a pleasant scent coming from the kitchen. Following my nose, I traced the scent to the source of the scent back to the chef of the household, who immediately ran over to my side. Welcome back. So yeah, the characters look quite a bit different from the backgrounds. Like, the backgrounds are pretty sharp and accurate. The character models could use a little touching up. I thought it was about time for you to get home. I've been waiting all afternoon. The young girl waiting for me was Sarah, my twin sister, the only family I have left. Unlike me, Sarah is still in school, so she's been getting home a few hours earlier than I have lately, giving her ample time to take care of the household chores. Kind, gentle, dependable, smart, Sarah is the image of an ideal little sister, one without whom I've never made it this far. I'm not that late, am I? Not at all. In fact, you're just in time. In time? In time for what? Given my first observation upon entering the house, I already had a good idea of what awaited me. However, even with Sarah staying before me while wearing an apron, something didn't seem right. In a house with few appliances and shelves stocked with cheap instant food, my sister, who had never cooked for me before, had somehow whipped up a proper meal in anticipation of my return. I could ignore the fact that the house smells like real food for once, but where on earth did the ingredients and utensils come from? Since Sarah and I began living on our own, we've been eating instant food every day, unable to afford anything better. With the petty cash we had left, there's no way Sarah could have bought any of this. In the saucepan we have white sauce with chunks of sun-dried tomatoes, and in the pot we have fettuccine pasta. I hope you're hungry. Hungry is an understatement, but if there's one thing that's more powerful than my stomach, it's my curiosity. Sarah, where did you get the money for all this? And since when have you known how to cook? I go out of my way to cook you dinner, and this is how you react. Fine then, I guess I'll just have to eat it all myself. I knew I should have stopped after the first question. Oh well, forget it. Sarah probably just borrowed some things from school or from one of her friends. Anyway, where have you been? Usually you'd have been home an hour ago. Shit, that's right. Given the situation, I hadn't even thought about what time it was. Is it worth trying to come up with an excuse now? Nope. Nah, better just play it off. An excuse made up on the spot would just make her suspicious. Just at work. I must have lost track of time. Anyway, did I miss anything? Now that you mention it, something did arrive for you. Sarah removed her apron, simultaneously taking out an envelope from her pocket. Sorry, I know I shouldn't have opened it. Sarah handed me the envelope, which she attempted to reseal after opening. I peered inside the envelope, and within it I found... money. Wait a minute. There has to be at least $2,000 in here. I spent a little on utensils and some fresh meat and vegetables. You can't eat instant noodles every day, you know. Sarah explained to me why the envelope was no longer full, but as I vacantly stared at the money in my hands, she needn't have bothered. Even at the pay I was promised, I should have made less than $1,000 in total. For there to be over double that left after Sarah's expenses. This must be Marcus's doing. He knows I need money and that I won't be able to pay him back unless I accept his job offer. Furthermore, Marcus sent the money straight to my sister, eliminating the possibility of me refusing or returning the money. But how did he get the money to my sister so early? Did he know ahead of time that Muda would refuse to pay me? This is all just... What are you waiting for? Come on, get it while it's hot. Interrupting my agitated thoughts, Sarah took me by the hand and led me into the living room. Sitting on the table in front of the couch were placemats paired with shiny cutlery, more goods we didn't own mere hours ago. Further to that, 2 steaming plates entered my vision later as Sarah made another quick stop in the kitchen, bringing with her a heavenly scent. Come on, put down the money and eat. As intrigued as I was by the scene before me, the thought of putting down the cash-filled envelope had yet to cross my mind. After all, before I could relax and eat dinner, there was still something I needed to clear up. I will, but before that, how and when did you get this envelope? Didn't your boss tell you? The envelope was mailed here sometime today. Well, I get that envelopes are made to be mailed, but an envelope with this much money in it? That's just careless. And extremely suspicious. I hadn't really thought about that. I just found it slipped under the door before I got home. That isn't much to go on, but it does confirm my earlier suspicion. Sarah gets home hours before I do. If this money came from Marcus, he really must have known that what would happen ahead of time. Damn it. Feels like I'm being played by that bastard. Enough about that. Sit down and eat already. You better not be stalling because you're afraid to eat my cooking. What? Of course not. Though it is true, she's never cooked for me before. Oh well, it certainly smells nice enough. Wow, this is actually pretty good. It might be because I've been eating instant food for weeks on end, but this tastes like something I'd actually pay for. Though it might taste better if a certain supplement wasn't analyzing every bite I take. Maybe some feedback will get Sarah off my back. Whoa, this is amazing. You really think so? Absolutely. You'll make a great wife one of these days. What are you talking about? Who would be a great wife? Don't sell yourself short, my dear sister. Any guy would be lucky to have you. Though I suppose your attitude and sense of style could use some work. You really think that? Wait, what was that? You're the last person in the world who should be lecturing me on my style. Now, I meant it as a compliment. How is that a compliment? Now, this is more like it. Sarah's so much fun to tease. She's really easy to wind up. Whatever the case, it really is nice to be eating real food again. What are you talking about? It's only been a couple of weeks, you know. For you, maybe. But I've gone from a month of hospital food straight to nothing but instant noodles. Right, I guess it has been a while for you. As much as I try to sympathize with Sarah, my life hasn't been so grand lately either. After suffering a severe head injury and losing months' worth of memories as a result, I received the grim news that our parents had been killed in a car crash. Worse, since the circumstances surrounding the crash were deemed suspicious, their assets were frozen, leaving Sarah and I without a dime. Finally, without any close relatives who we could rely on, I had little choice but to quit school and find a job, assuming responsibility for Sarah's well-being. So now, after suffering so much hardship in such a short amount of time, being able to indulge in a peaceful home like this is a dream come true. Either way, you're right, it is nice. It feels like we finally got some piece of our own lives back. I couldn't agree with you more. And with that in mind, dear sister, what will be the next stop of the Tesla family restoration project? The what? If we're going to restore our lives to what they were, we need to plan out what we're going to do. What's next? A car? A bigger TV? A live-in maid? Like I'd let you give it a live-in maid, you pervert. But you do have a point. We should have some kind of plan to manage from now on. What do we need next? There are a lot of things still missing from this house. The facilities work, and we have minor luxuries like a television and refrigerator, but still a far way off from feeling like home. It's not something we need to figure out right now. Just give it some thought. Right. I shouldn't get too excited about spending money we don't even have yet. Besides, we should be going to bed soon anyway, so... Right, we should get a second bed. Huh? I mean, even if there's only one bedroom in this house, there's still room for another bed. That way we won't need to share anymore. I'm sure many people would get the wrong idea if I said that I sleep with my sister, but there's really nothing dubious at play here. This house only has a single bedroom, and until now we couldn't afford a second bed. Furthermore, when I suggested that I take the couch, Sarah insisted that I needed to sleep properly for work, and I could tell that she didn't want to be left alone in an unfamiliar house. Given the situation, I'd say her decision was correct. That's a waste of money. It is. But don't you want a bed of your own again? I mean, surely you're sick of... Focus on things we need, not things we want. Besides, it's getting late. We should think about it tomorrow. I guess my idea wasn't as bright as I thought. Maybe Sarah isn't ready to sleep alone yet after all. Regardless, Sarah was right about one thing. We shouldn't get too excited about spending money we don't even have yet. I should have told Sarah where that money came from, and that there might not be any future payments like it. But I let the atmosphere go to my head, afraid to break the mood. For the first time since our parents died, Sarah was happy, and if tonight pans out, I'd be satisfied with merely prolonging her happiness, even just temporarily. After taking a shower and storing my earnings, I retreated to my bedroom for a few hours of sleep. Sarah fell asleep by my side, tightly clinging to my torso, greedily stealing my body heat until I too lost consciousness. Unfortunately, as nice as a peaceful, relaxing night in a warm bed sounds, tonight that pleasure will be short-lived. Whatever Marcus has planned, midnight is the deadline he gave me, and I don't plan on being late. Midnight meetings and corpse handling aside, the fact of the matter is that Marcus has already compensated me for work not yet done, not to mention the promise of more to come. Whatever reservations I have about this, I can't afford not to go. At the very least, I need to hear him out and see what he has in mind. And if the job he has lined up for me is as violent and well-paid as my night so far would suggest, then there are worse ways to make a living. Eyeing the clock on the wall facing our bed, I snuck away from my sister's side, careful not to wake her. I slowly removed her arms from around me, replacing my body with the pillow I'd been using until moments prior, then tiptoed out of our bedroom and through the living room, not making a sound the entire trip. It's a shame to leave her side like this, but tonight, there's somewhere else I need to be. Following the unfamiliar route detailed to me earlier in the day, I made my way to a part of town I never thought I'd need to visit. Among the many districts of Richmond, this is one of the poorest and definitely not a good place to be at this time of night. There's no police presence to speak of, Most of the stores are closed or abandoned, and there's absolutely zero maintenance being done. As soon as Marcus told me where we'd be meeting, I knew the job he had lined up for me couldn't be legal. Just what am I getting myself into here? Geez, you took long enough. I was beginning to think you chickened out. The moment Marcus and I meet face to face, he opened up with his usual level of compassion. Chickened out of what? I don't even know why I'm here. You're here because it's one of the few places in town where someone like you can actually make money. You know that isn't what I meant. I'm in a shady neighborhood in the middle of the night prepared to make money from legally questionable work, and you're still only telling me the bare minimum. You can't keep me in the dark forever, Marcus. I guess you're right. But really, relax already. It's honest work, I assure you. In this part of town, this late at night, I doubt it. Alright, so what now? Just follow me. You'll understand soon enough. Marcus turned around and walked to the side entrance of the building adjoining the car park. He removed a keyring from his pocket and unlocked a steel-framed door, turning back for a moment to smirk as though daring me to follow him. And so I did. Following right behind Marcus, I entered the jewelry building, immediately confronted by a dusty staircase within. The path before us was dark, dirty, and every bit as eerie as one would think a midnight stroll in an unsavory neighborhood might be. Despite that, the staircase appeared to be maintained, or at least not dilapidated. Moreover, albeit faint, I could definitely see light coming from below. What awaited us at the bottom of the staircase was an arena. In the center was a boxing ring, and beyond that were grandstands, akin to those I'd usually see in football stadiums. Despite the massive size of the venue before us, there were only a few other people present, all mulling around near the top of the grandstands. The lights remained dim, and for all intents and purposes, Marcus and I were essentially alone. So what do you think? Pretty impressive, huh? That's one word for it. What the hell is an arena like this doing down here? I believe the word you're looking for is stadium or ring. Anyway, where else would it be? Events like these can't take place out in the open, you know, not even in Richmond. Events like these? It's just a boxing ring, right? In a way? Interested? In boxing? I'm not a fan of watching sport, but come to think about it. Just wait a little longer, another 5 minutes, and this place will be open to the public. Then you can tell me if you're interested in bashing skulls for a living. While Marcus and I hung around the bottom of the dark stairwell, an entrance apparently reserved for staff, spectators began to storm in from between the grandstands. Hundreds, if not thousands, of spectators flooded the grandstands, soon filling the arena which had been empty only in a Dark Hero style. Actually, Marcus does have a point. If I learned how to fight professionally and proceeded to bet on myself, I can make a lot of money. It would also give me an outlet, somewhere to vent my frustration rather than on unsuspecting victims like Mudo. But that's the best case scenario. Realistically, I'm not even place like this must rake it in. I'd be foolish not to try and get in on something like this. Make a living? How? What kind of business does he run? Forget I said anything. Let's just make a silly bet between friends, okay? Who do you think will win this next match? Macho Man or the Little Jap? With both fighters for the next match already center stage, I could clearly tell who Marcus was referring to. Before us were shouted out for blood, spurring on the giant he'd been pitted against. No more, I give. The man in blue paid no heed to his opponent's pleas for mercy. Even as the Japanese man cried out in pain, forfeiting without hesitation, the giant continued unabated, glaring at his opponent without even a hint of sympathy. Despite how overwhelmingly one-sided the fight proved to be, the crowd continued to cheer, seemingly more interested in seeing blood than a match. And so, in response to their lust for violence, the Caucasian man happily carried out his job. The sound of the Japanese man's arm being snapped in two was silenced by the crowd, most of whom went quiet as its echo reached their ears. Medical staff rushed into the ring, carrying the fallen fighter out post-haste, and gamblers lined up to collect their payouts, leaving the remainder of those present in shock and awe. Well, that was unpleasant. Matches aren't usually this brutal. There's no money to be made in excessively one-sided fights. Marcus tried to speak to me, but whatever he had to say, I wasn't interested. Even after the match had ended, my mind was in the ring, replaying the scene that had transpired mere moments ago. I could feel the blood drain away from my face even before the decisive moment, at which point there wasn't a single hair on my body not standing on end. Marcus dragged me here with promises of money, making it sound like my worries were over. A legal job, one in which I could act violently and make money from doing so. Boxing fit that description, and for a moment there, I could even see myself wearing boxing gloves and trunks, duking out with some other money-hungry athlete. But what I just saw, whatever it was, that's not happening. Marcus can't possibly expect me to get in a ring like that, to get my legs broken for a sadistic boss's amusement. I may be desperate, but no sum of money is worth that. After the last of the spectators and staff members had left the stadium, only two figures lingered in the underground lair. Hidden behind thick glass, watching over the match from afar, the duo began to wind down as the night's festivities came to a close. What a night! I can't remember the last time I watched a fight live. Were they always this gruesome? The pairings are usually more balanced. There's no profit in matches without obvious outcomes, after all. Usually, as in not tonight? Do you have to ask? You specifically requested that we skew the pairings so that different weight classes would fight one another. I did? That doesn't sound like me. Well, you didn't put it quite like that. You wanted to find someone lean and fast and strong, right? Someone who could punch above their weight class. Right. But isn't this selection method a little counterproductive? Why are you asking me? It was your idea. Oh, I see. Oh, scratch that. There has to be a less costly method, right? Yes, sir. I'll start spreading word that we're recruiting, and I'll keep your criteria in mind. No, you can't pin this one on me. It's your criteria, Sai. I won't have a clue what to look for. Very well, I'll pass along my criteria and expand the recruitment drive to include younger fighters. But even then, it might take a while. Finding someone capable is only half the battle. The real challenge is finding someone who's not only emotionally and mentally stable, but also desperate for money. And ruthless enough to kill for it.